Oh well, guys, it looks like we got a return of the salty Liberal Democrats coming here. This time, though, they're not trying to rejoin the EU. They just want to restart freedom of movement because they think it will benefit the British people. Are they actually out of their minds? I would love to know how and where they think this will benefit the British people, but apparently, according to Sir Ed Davey, that is what will happen. These Ramonin tosspots claim they've given up on rejoining the EU, but are determined to get freedom of movement open. So it's no longer stop Brexit, it's open the borders and let every Tom, Dick and Harry come in. Though to be honest with you, they could just join the Tory party. That's practically what they are doing anyway. Now obviously, I don't believe for a moment that Sir Ed Davey and the Liberal Democrats are going to stop campaigning for Remain and wouldn't rejoin if they had half the chance. Of course, that is what they would do. But it is rather funny seeing him renounce remaining or rejoining as it's now known to just go after freedom of movement. I expect a fair few Liberal Democrats, the hardcore Remain type, will be very salty at this, which Breitbart picked up on earlier with the headline UK Liberal Democrats to campaign to bring back EU free movement, because obviously what the people voted for doesn't matter to these tosspots. It says the leader of the Liberal Democrats, which branded the Leave vote a national humiliation, is campaigning to bring back freedom of movement with the EU, opening up migration to an unlimited number of Europeans to live and work in the UK. Which obviously has got me sitting here saying, national humiliation, are you taking the piss? The people voting to leave are not a national humiliation. You, the BBC, and every Remain supporting MP are. At the end of the day, the people spoke and you tried to go against it. That makes you a complete and utter snivelling shitweasel, in my opinion, on par with Sadiq Khan, of course. It says Ed Davey took over as the leader of the Liberal Democrats after the party's embarrassing losses under former leader Joe Swinson. Yeah, embarrassing losses, that's a fucking understatement, let me tell you that. Who it says campaigned to force the UK to stay in the EU if they won enough seats to take control of Parliament. Yeah, you remember it, Joe Swinson, the next Prime Minister. It says without regret, after Swinson had lost her own constituency in December 2019 poll, she said that she was proud that Liberal Democrats were the unapologetic voice of Remain, and she was also proud that she got her ass kicked. A bit like the Remain campaign in general. Though to be honest, in terms of immigration, I don't think it's going down, and I don't think it ever will. The Tories have not exactly shown themselves to be anti-immigration since we left. In fact, the boats still keep coming over every single day. It says, as recently as May 2020, Davey was pressuring the government to delay the UK leaving the EU's institutions, which occurred as scheduled on December 31st, 2020, by up to 2 years because of the pandemic. Yeah, and that was the reason he claimed, but in reality, that was not the reason why. He was just doing all he could to keep us in the EU. If Boris would have actually done that, then you can bet your bollocks to a barn dance. Labour MPs and the rest of them would be screaming for us to just cancel Brexit altogether. And knowing how bad this flip-flopping piss-poor government is, who knows, they might have actually done it. They are that fucking stupid. It goes on, now that the UK is fully independent, Sir Ed told the BBC's Andrew Marr that the party, which once formed a coalition with the Conservative Remainer David Cameron's administration from 2010 to 2015, will not campaign to rejoin the bloc, but will push to reopen the borders with hundreds of millions of its citizens allegedly for the benefit of Britons, which obviously is not going to be to the benefit of Britons and would slap in the face 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit. Because it goes without saying, one of the reasons why they voted for Brexit would have been to stop EU immigration. Of course, it would have been to stop mass immigration like we have seen. But obviously, we all got hoodwinked and Boris Johnson ain't stopping shit. In fact, it will probably increase given the way he's acted over the past year or so. He goes on, we are not a rejoined party, but we are a very pro-European party. We believe it is in the interests of the British people for jobs, small businesses, exporting, Scottish fishermen, for our security and for our police services that we have the closest possible relationship with our European partners, and we'll be arguing throughout the next few months and years that Britain needs to have a far more pro-European position. No, you dirty snivelling tosspot, we need to have a more pro-British fucking position. That goes without saying and should have always been the way, but obviously we have shitweasels like you sitting in Parliament, so that was never going to happen. It says Marr asked whether the UK should negotiate with the political superstate to reintroduce freedom of movement. The Liberal Democrat leader said yes, of course he fucking did. He said free movement is a huge freedom for the British people. British people work across the European Union. They travel, they live, they bring up families across the European Union. And yes, they'll still be able to do that. It's called getting a fucking visa, like you have to do with everywhere else in the world. I love how their best reasons for remaining in the EU are just things you can do anyway. The article goes on, meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has distanced himself from campaigning to bring back freedom of movement and last year said that the Brexit question was settled. Yeah, because he knows he's forever known as the Remain supporting tosspot, and in some delusional sense of reality actually thinks that Brexiteers will ever come back to the Labour Party and support his Remain supporting shit show. Of course they fucking won't. You betrayed the country no different to Jeremy Corbyn or any other Labour snivelling shitweasel. So realistically, it don't even matter what he says, but as we know, Labour, they still fully support rejoining the EU. It says, but earlier this month, former Shadow Minister Rosie Duffield said that the majority of the party is desperate to rejoin the EU and implied that there could become party policy under a new leader. Yeah, what she means there is when they try and force in another Corbynista, then that will become party policy. Though to be honest, I think you've got a little while before that comes. I don't think Sir Keir Starmer is going anywhere. He is hoping and praying that Boris Johnson continues to balls it up and people will turn to the Labour Party, though I really can't see him doing that. Most of the people I've spoke to who are disillusioned with the Conservatives after voting for him in 2019 will just vote for one of the smaller parties. Let's be honest, there's probably 50 of them at this point. And while they won't win or even get a seat, it will show the Labour Party and the Tories that the people are not on their side, much like it did with the Brexit situation in local and European elections. But as always, the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, and of course the Labour Party are well away from what the public actually wants and instead live in their own metropolitan bubble that no one gives a shit about. It's just an echo chamber, much like Twitter. So yeah, Sir Ed Davey, keep campaigning for open borders and freedom of movement because the people will never support you, and that is something I enjoy. Watching yous lot get absolutely trounced at an election is almost as good as watching it happen to Labour.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.